Hey everyone, welcome back. So this is the movies, coffee and a chat video. Basically go through everything on my Letterboxd. Well, I say everything, things that I haven't probably mentioned on my Letterboxd, more the highlights. I don't want to bore anyone to death, more than I probably already do. But yeah, so once a month I'll just sort of like go through anything that is worth mentioning, in my eyes anyway, that I've seen, rewatched or watched that isn't part of my pickups, my monthly pickups. So the monthly pickups video, I probably did the video before this one in theory, and I try and watch anything that I pick up in the same month where I can. But yeah, sometimes obviously there's stuff that I'm watching that isn't a pickup for that month, and that's kind of what I'm going to just go through here quickly, maybe, and yeah, have a quick chat about. So I forget roughly where we left off. It must have been the end of obviously the last month, but I think I was going to have, I think if I remember rightly, had a couple of pals coming over and we were going to go in the cinema garage I've got set up and just watch a bunch of movies. So I think that's where we are. If I'm mistaken, then feel free to let me know, but I'm going with that because that's the last thing I remember. So what did we watch? We watched a lot of rewatches, so we're all similar age, pretty much the same age, and yeah, there was a couple of rewatches in there that we hadn't, well, those two guys hadn't seen since probably the teen years, a lot of them. And then there was a couple of films in there that I wanted to throw in as more of a, so there's one film that I threw in there as a more of a kind of like, I think you should check this out because I've seen it recently and I really enjoyed it. So what did we watch? We rewatched Euro Trip. So, personal favourite of mine. If you know me and you know the channel, that one's come up a few times in the past. So from 2004, just 2004, perfect time for us. We were sort of young. What were we? We were teenagers, just about, I think, there. So yeah, teenagers. Similar sort of, that comedy was around quite a lot more then. Just a fun movie for us to look back on with nostalgia. Sure everyone knows Euro Trip who's watching this. Then I wanted to throw in the mix that movie that I saw, I think this year or end of last year, called Loop Track. So yeah, I wanted to see what they felt about that one. I really enjoyed that movie. I think they liked it. I don't think they quite liked it as much as me, but they all agreed on the same, the same things where what happens in it does take you slightly off guard towards the end, shall I say. So yeah, they watched that one and enjoyed that one. Then we threw on The Matrix. Now, apparently controversially, this is not a well-liked film nowadays, or a lot of people that I know watch this channel that don't think much of this movie. This is a 5-star film for me, and I know that seems to be controversial, but there's no way. There's no way. I watched this on 4K on the big screen in my setup, and we all just had a blast. I mean, it hit us at the right time. 1999, perfect time for us. Yeah, and it's one of those movies where I must have seen it so many times at such a influential age. When I had the scenes come up, it just went from one amazing scene to the next amazing scene to the next amazing scene. There was just no, there was no dead wood in that movie for me whatsoever. And it was like I knew them like the back of my hand when they started playing that scene. It's like when you hear a song and you wouldn't be able to tell, wouldn't be able to maybe say the words to the song all the way through without the song being there in the background. But as soon as it basically hit the screen, as soon as the scene started playing out, it was all coming back to us. And yeah, just amazing. So I pulled off the shelf the movie Ghost Watch as well. So I say movie, like a TV episode special, maybe more so. So I remember watching this back in, must have been 1992, it says it came out. So where Michael Parkinson, like a well-known UK kind of like documentary guy, more of a chat show guy, not a documentary. Yeah, he basically hosted this thing about paranormal activity in the UK. Went through a whole bunch of stuff in this house where this supposed like spirits are. I'll be honest, I know this gets a lot of love. I wasn't crazy on it. I wasn't mad. I give it 3 out of 5. I think maybe now knowing that it wasn't real took the shine off it obviously slightly. Whereas back in '92, one, I was younger. Two, it was more realistic in terms of everyone was fooled pretty much at the time when watching that film slash TV special. Whereas now it's been debunked. We know it's not real. It was all put on as a bit of a hoax, bit of a show. And the young kids in it, bless them, like as their acting was, I don't know how people didn't twig from the acting back in the day. Wasn't the best, bless them. Maybe they're really famous now. I don't know. I shouldn't say. I checked out a movie called I think it's Andy. I'm pretty sure Andy and Mike, Cinemax Man. They did their video where Andy's doing his videos. They were talking about Michael Keaton movies, and not only did listening to that put like another 5 or 6 movies on my watch list. Thanks, guys. Then I thought, right, as soon as I get a chance, I've got to check this one out. And I watched Pacific Heights. Now, I know Andy's mentioned this quite a few times in the past and sort of picked it up. Movie from 1990. I'd never seen it before, obviously. But yeah, I had a real good time with that one. It was a really interesting story. It's just that time period where, I just enjoy movies from the 90s and the 80s. But I'm sure a lot of people would have heard Andy talk about that or know about it already. But a very brief scenario is like Michael Keaton's character, he sort of like gets himself into this place where he wants to start renting this room off of a couple who just bought his house to renovate and do up. And he essentially kind of like, promises the rent. He keeps saying money's tied up in places. It should have got to him by now. And all the while, he sort of locked himself away in that place where he's going to be renting. And this slightly naive couple kind of like just let him. But yeah, that's the very, very basic broad line of it. He then, he does more and more things that just really frustrate the landlord, shall we say. But yeah, I had a really good time with that one. That's a very loose outline of what's going on in that film. What else? So which one there wasn't very good? That was Black Hat. I think it was a Michael Mann movie. I think Arrow Reed put it out. But yeah, that was a chore to get through personally. It was literally a 1-star film for me. What else have we got? Okay, so I had one of the most, if not the most, definitely one of the most surreal evenings of watching movies in my life. So I didn't realize they're both from the same year actually. So both 2 movies from 1988. Now, I had never seen either of these movies before. I knew loosely what the first one was about, and I've been wanting to get to it for years, but I've never got to it. And then the second one, the only reason I watched that is because I think someone at work mentioned that it was a movie, and again, I didn't realize that it was actually a sort of a proper movie. You'll know what I'm talking about when I get to it. I thought it was more, again, of a music video type thing. Not really a movie. Anyway, I'll get on with what they are. So basically, the first one I watched bear in mind, the same evening, I kicked off my evening with Mac and Me. So yeah, if McDonald's decided to remake E.T., this is what you would get. I liked it. It's one of those ones where you can't not like it. It's just so bad. It's good. Yeah, I mean, so many scenes in there just stand out as being amazing. In all the wrong ways. This little alien is a pretty much surefire remake of E.T. These couple of kids who are moving house with their mum, single mum. They move to this new house. This alien who's been sort of left behind somewhere stumbles across them at the same time. There's this young girl next door. So then you've got your 3 kids set up where you've got the young girl, the 2 boys, like an older brother and a younger brother. Same setup as what you got in E.T. Sure enough, they discover this little alien which looks hysterical to look at and to watch on the screen. Yeah, basically, then there's a whole singing and dancing routine in the McDonald's with Ronald McDonald himself. I'm glad I don't do drugs. That's all I'm saying, because I think I don't know what would have happened with that evening. And then to top that off, I went straight on to after that Michael Jackson in Moonwalker. Yeah, so that was an experience. I saw a short clip. I think this girl I work with was showing me on her phone, and she said, "Oh, have you seen that? I know you like films." I said, "I didn't even know that was an actual film. Like, maybe it's me being naive, but yeah, I didn't even know that was a proper feature-length film." So I checked it out, and my word, it's again, I'm glad I don't do any narcotics of any type, because this thing would have, I don't know what would happen. So, Moonwalker, where do you start with Moonwalker? Michael Jackson, the first 20 minutes is just back-to-back Michael Jackson in concert, essentially. So I started thinking maybe it's just maybe it's just a concert video. Maybe that's what it is for an hour and a half. So it just goes from one music video to the next music video to the next one for about 20 minutes. Then he bumps into a couple of kids, and then you've got a scene where he's running away. I think he's running away for some fans. He's running away from his fans because all his fans want to get him and get near him. And he's running and he's running and he runs down an alleyway, goes into this little room. The police are after him as well at this point. Again, and he goes in there and he finds this massive costume for a rabbit head. Bear with me. Puts this costume head on. He turns into a claymation type character in the film, and then walks out the door, walks right past all the crowd that have been looking for him and the police that have been looking for him, mocks them on the way through. They, for some reason, can't put two and two and assume that the guy's just gone in there to come out is now dressed as just a rabbit, but made out of clay. He gets away, he runs down, there's a bit of storyline, very loosely, a few more music videos. Then it goes on a bit further and he transforms into a car, as you do. And then he goes along, he bumps into some kids again for a little bit of loose storyline. There's some sort of battle at the end. I think it's a very weird, vague evening I had quite a while back. This is on the 6th of, what was that, have been May. Yeah, it was an experience. I didn't like it quite as much as Mac and Me, so that's saying something. But yeah, what an interesting evening that was. Mac and Me and Moonwalker, definitely worth a double bill if you like a few edibles. So then I checked out Mighty Supreme. Now I've been waiting to see this one. I'd heard good things. I think for this Mighty Supreme, for me, I give it 3.5 out of 5. I thought it was really good. It had nothing for me personally to go back to. That was my only thing. I think for me it was quite. I'm happy I've seen it, but it was a one and done for me. So yeah, I did enjoy it. Then I checked out Send Help. I was trying to catch up on some of my new releases at the start of the month. So yeah, watched Send Help, obviously the Sam Raimi film. First directed film since, I think, Drag Me to Hell, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, yeah, Send Help. I'm sure a lot of people would have heard about this one now. It's essentially a deserted island movie with a couple trying to survive on there. I really enjoyed this one, yeah. I mean, all the Sam Raimi-ness in there was just ticked a load of boxes for me. I think if he wasn't in charge of it, I'm not quite sure it'd have been quite as good. But yeah, I really like Rachel McAdams. The guy in there did a really good job at playing this guy that you love to hate as being a boss. And then yeah, there's basically just a power flip between her being like the underdog at the start of the story and being this sort of like woman who no one likes in the office and was trying to get rid of, to then flipping it on its head when she gets on the island. She's got all these skills that he doesn't know about, and he's got an injured leg, and yeah, that's the basic outline of that one. But I really enjoyed that one. That was Send Help. I watched Undertone, newish horror movie. Now, I'll be honest, I think I heard Jordan talk about this one. I don't know if it was before or after. Might have been after, actually, this one. Movie Squirm. I'll link him down below. But yeah, I watched this one. I give it 2.5 out of 5. It started off with a real good premise. So I actually unknowingly watched it. I didn't know anything about it going in. But I watched it with a pair of headphones at night on my own in the dark, which turned out to be arguably the best way to watch that film, as it's all about this girl who's living in a house with her mum, who is very clearly not got many days left to live, shall we say. She's quite literally on her deathbed, and her daughter's there just sort of like keeping an eye on her, making sure she's comfortable. Her mum doesn't ever really, speak or open her eyes. She's just sort of breathing slowly on the bed, and her daughter goes in and checks on her and cares for her, quite regular. So she's in this old house, this old sort of like semi-creepy house in the evening, and her job is she does a podcast with another guy who lives obviously miles away. So in the evenings, she puts her headphones on. So this is where, everything was really, really good at the start here, because I was drawn into this. I was thinking, okay, you've got a creepy house, we've got night settings, we've got this sort of like isolated area where she's alone with someone who's obviously about to pass away. There's something here that's pretty good. And it did that thing in films what I like where she's got the headphones on, all ambient audio is cut straight away. So all the ambient audio of like just noises in the background, just gone. So all you're doing is you can hear exactly what she can, which is like noise cancelling headphones. She can just hear the voice of her co-host on the other side when she's doing the podcast. So this is how it all starts. She's doing a podcast. They do a podcast about kind of creepy tales. She's meant to be a bit of a skeptic, I think, and he's meant to be a bit of a believer. And they get these stories pulled up on the internet, and they go through all these different stories. Again, another element I quite liked. And then it got to the point where it did the other thing in the stories where she's sitting there and you can kind of see in the background it's slightly blurred and dark where there's no real lights on. Something would flicker, like maybe a light would go out or something would ping on, and you think, oh, her mum's not there doing it because her mum's upstairs, she's not going anywhere, and she's, as far as we know, she's all alone. And that's the kind of like horror I like. Things that kind of like happen in the dark or in the corners of the thing, and it makes you look and makes you think, but you don't really see anything. So I did that a few times, and I was really enjoying that. And then it gets to the end, and for me, it was just such a disappointing end. It just sort of like, for me, fizzled out, to be honest. So yeah, it had a real good potential, but unfortunately, the end, which obviously I'm not going to spoil anything, the end just didn't really build too much for me. Nothing that is worthwhile anyway. But yeah, that was Undertone. So if you like that type of thing, and you may find the ending hits you different, give that one a go. What else have we got? Trying to pick ones that I haven't already spoken about in the monthly haul videos. So I rewatched San Andreas. I think that was in 3D when I watched that one. So yeah, I really like that. The Rock just like, saving the world as he does from a helicopter. That was really good in 3D, just seeing all the buildings fall and the waves crash over everything. That was an enjoyable rewatch. And then watched Dread 3D. I might have spoken about these briefly on a previous video. That was another good one. Yeah, so that one's there. That was the pickups I did. I rewatched one of my favourite movies as well, which this one was on the 16th, and I rewatched Walk the Line. So yeah, I absolutely love this film. I just hadn't seen it in such a long time. I wanted to go back to it. So it came out in 2005, and if you're not familiar with the story, it's basically pretty much the life story, or the kind of like look back on the life of Johnny Cash, the country singer. Yeah, really, really enjoy it. Reese Witherspoon is like one of my favourite actresses. So her and Joaquin Phoenix, however you want to say his name, they're the two main leads in this. I just love the songs, the music, the acting, everything in this one. The pacing of it, the way it looks back in time from Folsom Prison over his early life. If you haven't seen Walk the Line, I mean, even if you're not a fan of Johnny Cash, because I think when I first watched this, I probably knew of him, but I wasn't huge on him. I hadn't really got a lot of his records or anything or CDs, but yeah, definitely a good film. Must watch that one. I also rewatched then Dark Water. So this is the remake with Jennifer Connelly. So I'm a big Jennifer Connelly fan, obviously from The Labyrinth. This was also a 2005 movie, and I hadn't seen this since DVD days for years. So yeah, wanted to give this one a rewatch. It was slightly better than I remember. I remember watching it on DVD and just being so disappointed with it back in the day, thinking it was so bland and just like nothing. I give it 3 out of 5. It was better than I remembered it being. Slightly creepy. Obviously, it's a remake of I think it was an Asian film. So yeah, remake of there, where this mother and daughter move into an apartment block. And there's this like leak in the ceiling. There's this constant leak in the ceiling, and the guys that work there, a bit reluctant to patch it up, but they eventually do. And there's sort of like a creepy, ghosty story type thing going on behind the scenes, but I won't go too far into it. That's Dark Water. It's pretty good. I want to check out the film The Drama because a lot of people have been giving that high praise. I hated it. I really didn't like that film at all. I give it 2 out of 5, which for me is it's an okay film. Maybe Zendaya. I haven't seen much that I like Zendaya in. So I didn't like the other one that she was in. Everyone liked. I don't know. Roy was a big fan about tennis or something. Whatever that was. But yeah, didn't like that one at all. I just kind of like. Again, it started off okay, and then I just got so bored. Like just so bored throughout. Like once I realised that it was all about. It was like here's something that I thought about once doing. I never did it, but thought about it. Then that was the entire story was just based on that one thing, and it just bored me to tears. I rewatched I watched for the first time the remake of Anaconda, which again I heard mixed things about. Now, I'm a massive fan of the first Anaconda. I really love that movie with J-Lo. Now this one, it was fine. I give it a 3 out of 5. It was fine. I've seen better, I've seen worse. But yeah, I don't know. It was fine. I liked bits of it. It's just would I go back to it? Probably not. Whereas I would with the original one. I just got a soft spot for that one. So next up, I watched a Sammy G recommendation. So thank you to Sammy G. This one was one he pinged out for me as a recommender. I think he might message me this one. I'm not sure. Maybe it was in a video. But The Giant Mechanical Man. So from 2012. So yeah, this is like a kind of like indie drama, indie rom-com type thing from sort of mid 2000s. I give this 3 out of 5. I thought it's pretty decent. I would watch this again. It's about a guy who, for his job, basically does dressing up. Where you see these people out, normally sort of somewhere in London or a big city, where they might just dress up as a statue or something a little bit untoward. I might sit in a funny way that you naturally couldn't sit. He does the Giant Mechanical Man, so he's on stilts, dressed in the metallic paint, and he's just like out and about doing his thing, earning money. And he's just going through a bit of a relationship breakup, and there's this other girl who follows, who's also not really getting very far in life in terms of her love life. And the two cross paths basically a few times. Sometimes they realise, sometimes they don't. And they end up working at a zoo together briefly. And then they kind of hit it off from there. But yeah, that's I won't go too much more into that. That was a pretty enjoyable 3 out of 5 movie for me. Then I watched the newest edition of the 28 series. So I got the 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. So I watched that one. I thought that was pretty good, that one. So 3.5 out of 5. I'd go back to that one and watch it again. I quite liked that it was mainly focused in one particular area, this one, and sort of like focused on the guy building all the obviously the temple, the Bone Temple, obviously, but and what he was doing with the big old guy in there. I can't think of what his name was, but yeah, how he I don't want to spoil anything, but what he was doing with that guy, and yeah, where that was going. I quite liked that one. It was fine. It was fine. I didn't mind that one at all. It was enough there to rewatch. What else have we got here? I had a rewatch of the movie The Kings of Summer from 2013, so I hadn't seen that one in quite a few years. I remember it being like pretty good, but not quite as good as the movies that it's probably inspired from, which would be things like Stand By Me, coming of age drama, like with kids, messing around in the summertime in the woods, having a good time. I must admit, it had been so long since I watched it that it was almost like a first time watch for me. I didn't remember how funny it was. There was a lot more comedy in it than I remember. But yeah, it was fine. I think it lent slightly more into the comedy more than it did the drama for me, which not by much, but only a little bit. But it wasn't quite as good. Well, it wasn't a patch on Stand By Me, but it was still a reasonable watch. I think I picked that up as a 3.5 out of 5. So yeah, pretty solid. Then I had a rewatch with one of my more recent but favourites. I would class it as a 5-star film. This was an instant 5-star film for me, which is quite a rare thing to do. And that is The Sandlot, or as I think it's sometimes known as The Sandlot Kids. I'm not sure why it shows up 2 different titles in 2 different places. But yeah, 1993 movie. If you haven't seen this movie and you're a similar age to me, or you just like those sort of coming of age movies, highly recommend checking this one out. Maybe everyone knows about this. I'm never too sure what people know about what they don't. I'd never seen it before, and I don't think I'd heard very much about it before. I checked it out only last year or year before. But yeah, this one basically is based on a kid who's moves into this new town, and in America, and he basically goes to try and find some friends. This is set in, I'm not sure when it's set in. It's set in 60s, 50s, 80s. I don't know. It's set in the times where like things were good, and I have to put on the screen when it was set. But this kid moves into this neighborhood, and he doesn't know how to play sports or anything. He's just out looking for some friends. This is like the summertime as well, so he's walking around. He finds this local like park essentially, where these kids are all playing baseball. And there's like I think 7 or 8 of these kids playing baseball. Yeah, and he basically gets he sort of watches them from a distance and sees what they're up to, and tries to kind of like get in a little bit with them and play the game. But he's got no skills in terms of baseball, so they kind of like laugh him out of the park pretty quickly. But one of the older kids there, he kind of like is part of the group. He sort of thinks, oh, do you know what? We should really, get him involved, and sort of like bring him into the little gang we've got going. So anyway, the kid runs home, and in his home life, he's got a thing going on where his mum's been divorced or getting divorced from his dad. He's now got a new stepdad there, which they kind of get on, but they don't see completely eye to eye. They're doing the best they can. But his stepdad is a big sports fan, and he's got lots of memorabilia and stuff. Um, and yeah, this kid basically just follows this kid who's trying to go make friends with the local kids over the summertime and get involved in baseball. So the kids sort of like slowly, the main kid basically starts to take him in under his wing and show him the ropes and teach him how to catch, teach him how to bat, just teach him how to play basic sport so he can like get involved with the kids and they start hanging out. It's such a heartwarming, coming of age tale. So I highly recommend. I know obviously Sammy G, Andy, if you haven't seen this one, I've forgotten what the movies. Highly recommend to you two guys. I know you two guys, and probably Ollie as well. Ollie loves film. All three of you guys, 100%. I'd say you'd at least enjoy it. I don't know whether you'd give it the same score as me, but yeah, just follows him over the summer, trying to play sports with this group of kids, and then it just follows the antics that young kids would get up to back then. Going to the local swimming pool, eyeing on the lifeguard that's in there because she's like this teenage lifeguard. They're all sort of oogling over. And then they go back to this park, and essentially, long story short, they kind of, when they knock a ball over the fence at the end of the park, then they've got this kind of whole, it's sort of like a potential mythology about what's going on over the fence, like why they can't ever go back and retrieve their ball. There's meant to be this massive like thing over there which they don't want to get involved with. And then something happens towards the sort of middle of the film, which means they have to then get involved in what's going over the fence. So I won't spoil any more than that. But yeah, highly, highly enjoy and recommend that film a lot. So that's The Sandlot. And what else have we got here? So I watched a movie called Las Vegas. So this one came out in 2013. So this one's got Michael Douglas, Morgan Freeman, Kevin Kline. I don't know what I'm trying to remember. I could just click on the whole thing in front of me. Yeah, so this is Las Vegas. So this has got Robert De Niro, Morgan Freeman, Michael Douglas, Kevin Kline. They're the sort of 4 main people in this movie. Yeah, it came out in 2013. The only reason I watched this one was because the song that's used I best know the song used in Matilda when she's doing the telekinesis thing. It's like an older song, but I was really like, I had that stuck in my head all day. And I thought I really enjoyed that song, so I ended up Googling what other films use that song. Matilda came up, obviously it's probably the best known one it's used in. But this film came up called Las Vegas, and I thought, I'm sure I've got that somewhere in the collection. So I had a rummage through, found the film out, and sure enough, it opens on that song. I think it's the last time you hear it, but it was a weird way of getting into a film, but that's how I ended up choosing this film one evening after work. But yeah, pretty good. 4 fellas, like older fellas who, some of them think they're just sort of like, so old now, their family just kind of like bundle them up in cotton wool and they're just sitting at home. Some of them are, Michael Douglas' character is basically more clinging onto his youth a bit. He's done a bit well for himself. He's got a bit of money behind him. He's about to marry this like really young wife, which I thought was quite funny because obviously Michael Douglas in real life and his young wives, I quite like that they played into their characters. You even got Robert De Niro playing a bit of a boxer slash, not quite Raging Bull character, but a bit of a reference to, I'm sure, at certain points in this film. But yeah, if you haven't seen this one, it just follows them where there used to be. It starts off when the olden time, in their olden times. So when it was I think it was in the 50s when they were young boys, and how they used to hang out together. And they basically then cut to when they're old men, and where they're at in life now, where they're sort of like pretty separate, but they still sort of know each other. and they're sort of still pals and things, and then they get together, basically because Michael Douglas is about to get married to his young bride, so he ends up bringing his pals Morgan Freeman and Kelvin Klein and saying, let's get the guys back together. I'm going to get married. I'm just going to, and they go, oh, we're going to have to throw a bachelor party. Let's all go to Las Vegas, and we'll all hang out. And he's like, oh, I don't know about that. And they say, no, we're not having no for an answer. We're going to do it. One last hurrah. You're getting married. Let's do it. You've been single all your life. Let's go and celebrate. So sure enough, they all get together and they trick Robert De Niro's character, who's fallen out with Michael Douglas's character, to come and spend some time with them in Vegas. As soon as he realizes that he's been lured into a stag do, basically, he wants to bolt it and run away. But they manage to convince him to stay. They've got some old issues they need to sort through, and they basically spend their time in Las Vegas, getting into a bit of mischief. And yeah, it was a good tale. I think, what did I give this one? This one I gave 3.5 out of 5, and I would go back to that. It was fun enough. Then I think the next day after that, I rewatched a film called Alpha Dog. Now, if you don't know Alpha Dog, it came out in 2006. It's got Justin Timberlake in it. Don't let that put you off. And it's also got the guy who I know best as being the guy from Into the Wild. There we go. So I never remember his name, but I'll put a picture up if I think of it. It's also got a young Amanda Seyfried in there. And a young Amber Heard, I think, is in there as well. We also got Bruce Willis. So Ben Foster, so you've got a good cast in there. Now, this one I did see on DVD back in the day when it came out, so probably 2007, 2008, somewhere around there. And I hadn't seen it since. I remember thinking it was pretty good back in the day, but I didn't realise that it had been so long since I've rewatched it. So I pulled out the Blu-ray and, give it a rewatch. I didn't realise it was all based on a true story, this type of tale as well. So it's sort of like these two fairly low-key rival gangs, if you want. They're sort of gangs, they're sort of just like kids in this area. And they have a bit of a feud going on. So there's a bit of a low-key feud that then builds up a little bit higher. And the Justin Timberlake and the guy from Into the Wild, they spot one. It's all about money. One of them owes the other one money, can't pay it, and then there's a scuffle, and then they just say, right, it's on. We're it's all going to kick off. But they're out in the van, Justin Timberlake and Into the Wild guy, and they spot this guy who they've got the rival with. They spot his younger brother, who is also a well-known face, which again I'll have to put in here somewhere. And they spot him on the street, and they sort of pull the van over, lure him into the van, and essentially kidnap him. The kid doesn't really mind. It's a bit of an odd situation. Like, he's just kind of like happy to go along with things. He's like, oh, if you've got trouble with my brother, that's fine. I don't mind hanging out with you guys. And they're not being like particularly mean about the whole thing. I mean, they do beat him up at the start, but after that, they literally they're just kind of like, oh, actually, maybe we've done a step too far here. We should probably treat this kid quite well. We just want to scare him a bit. We don't really want to do anything too bad. So they end up just hanging out, and they're all playing their video games together. Hanging out at parties, drinking together. They get with girls and things like that, and make sure this kid's having a good time, even though he's technically been kidnapped. And they kind of bond with him a little bit. And meanwhile, the guy is, who's the brother of the young kid who's been taken. He's family and everything have now gone to the police. They've realised this kid's miss him. They're all kind of they don't know for sure, but this guy kind of thinks maybe because the rivalry's kicked off between us, maybe he has now been involved with these guys that I've got this new rivalry with. So he's got his suspicions, and everything's about to kick off. And it just builds and builds from there to quite a strong ending, I would say, as well. So based on a true story, if that sounds remotely interesting, I highly recommend checking that one out. I give that 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd. So I skipped a couple movies there. So I've got, a bit later on, I rewatched again, the Hurt Locker from 2008. So I'm sure a lot of people would have seen this or at least heard of it. But yeah, I hadn't seen this one in years. Really enjoyed this one on a rewatch. Give it 4.5 out of 5. Again, I blew this one up on a big screen, so it did sort of have a bit of an advantage there. About this guy who's set back when the Iraq war, Afghan war was going on. And it was the main focus in the news all the time. It was basically follows this guy who joins a bomb disposal team, who goes around and basically whenever an IED gets spotted, in, I think, were they in Iraq or in Afghanistan? I can't remember. In Iraq, I think. Whatever country they're in, basically where they're sort of patrolling, people kind of like point out different IEDs or potential IEDs, and they have to send in a bomb disposal team. So this guy ends up, they've got a machine, a robot thing that will go down, check it. And early on, there's a really, probably really famous cinematic scene when something gets triggered, shot really well. And he calls for basically a new guy to come in, this bomb disposal guy to come in, who is this guy, again, not good with names, who from probably the Marvel movies nowadays. He comes in as a bit of a wild card and is just not doing things like how regulations would normally dictate. He's a bit carefree, just kind of like strolls up to him, not caring the world, it seems. But the tension in this was unreal. Like, it just, even though I've seen it before, and even though it's a film, just seeing him go like in the mix with all these like cables and wires and explosives around him, just cutting wires, was making me sweat. So yeah, really, really good. If you haven't seen it, we haven't seen it in a long time like me, I highly recommend rewatching The Hurt Locker. I checked out Project Hail Mary because that was another big one that I missed at the cinema, and a lot of people have been sort of praising. I quite enjoyed this one. So the only thing that let me down slightly on this one was the ending. So I didn't quite enjoy the ending. I wasn't on board with how the last sort of scene or two played out. I think the reason I struggled with this one a little bit was because I watched the movie. I watched the movie. I think it's called Spaceman or The Spaceman with I can see his face. Adam Sandler. There we go. With Adam Sandler. Now, if you haven't seen that film, the premise of that film is that a guy in space on his own stumbles across a creature from another planet. In this case, I think is a spider-looking creature, who basically they buddy up together to work through issues to try and resolve the things that have gone wrong. Now, just from watching the trailer from Project Hail Mary, it kind of looked like the same thing, so I was a little bit skeptical. But I would say this one is much more of a bigger blockbustery type movie compared to the other one, which is fine. I'm all about that. I don't mind that at all. But yeah, it was pretty funny. It did remind me how much I really enjoy watching Ryan Gosling. Like, I do like his performances. He's been in so many films I really enjoy. But yeah, everything was good up until the last sort of like scene or two for me, and I just thought without those it probably would have been better for me. But yeah, that's by the by. It was 3.5 stars. I'd watch it again. Then I checked out. This is getting to the start of this month now because we've got a few days over the month. So I recently watched Good Luck, Have Fun, and Don't Die. So Sam Rockwell, another one of my favourite actors, he stars in this movie. I didn't realise this is pretty much just an anthology movie, really. I hadn't really realised that going in. So if you haven't seen this one, it is loosely about Sam Rockwell's character who turns up at this restaurant. He looks bizarre compared to us in modern times. He's got this like supposed bomb strapped to him, and he walks around this restaurant and basically just starts saying, okay, the right mix of people in here to save the future from AI is in this restaurant. I just need to find the right mix. Like, I know you're in here, I've just got to find the right mix. This is my 113th, 114th attempt at this or something like that, and I keep travelling back in time every time I get it wrong. We try and save the world and it goes wrong, so I have to come back here and start again with a new group of people, and we'll see how we get on. Everyone obviously thinks he's just a nut job. But slowly by surely, like, he ends up convincing people more through fear than anything else that he might blow everything up. And they get this little group together which escape this restaurant after the police turn up, thinking he's going to detonate himself and take everyone out. They manage to get off on a journey to then try and save the world from AI. So the idea is that somewhere out there, this kid is about to create a certain point of AI that ends up running amok on the world. It's very like topical. So it's very anti-AI, it's very anti-drones, anti technology, anti-phones. There's nods to things like older movies such as the Of the Dead movies, you know, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead. There's Invasion of the Body Snatchers type things going on in here. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed all the bits with Sam Rockwell. He's kind of like the main central column of the story. And then basically the characters that have joined him on the journey all have their side stories. So that's how it's like an anthology. So you kind of almost like ping off and go down this whole like this character's name will pop up on the screen after a few minutes, and then they'll go down the story of like how many days beforehand or weeks beforehand, show them how they got to the point almost in that cafe or that restaurant. And it will keep doing this through the film. So you see like various sub stories all building up to this one main story at the end. Yeah, I don't know if I'd go back to it. I think it was really good, but I don't know if it's got enough in there for me to really go back to and watch again. But yeah, give it 3.5 out of 5. Okay, I think that is pretty much it. I'm going to cut the video there because it's getting on. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed listening to some of these. I'll try and do another one of these at some point, probably next month would make sense. And then, yeah, I've got, like I keep saying, I've got a few tag videos to try and do over the month as well. So thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll catch you again next time. Cheers.